Every self has a purpose. We come to this world to explore and become. But the question remains: are the drones capable of constructing a self? To answer this, let's consider the example given by a philosophy professor. This professor tells us that many taxi drivers have a very peculiar habit. When one gets into the vehicle, the driver begins to talk. But, curiously, the taxi driver only talks about what is listening to on the radio. Then, already on the trip, the driver barely says a couple of words, and Professor Feynman interrupts him, having immediately inferred which radio station the driver was listening to. The professor tells the driver, "Look, sir, don't waste your time with me, because I know you're going to tell me this and that." "Ha," says the taxi driver. "How do you know?" "I know," the teacher replies, "because that's what they say on the radio station you're listening to. And, with great sadness, I tell you that you're not expressing your own ideas, but rather repeating the ideas of someone else. Of the radio station you're listening to, you don't speak, you are spoken. You don't think, you are thought. You live in a state of interpretation. Your ideas don't belong to you. What you say doesn't belong to you." Of course, since he's a philosophy professor, he explains this matter of living in a state of interpretation. Heidegger called it inauthentic existence, which is, above all, an existence incapable of reflecting on human finitude. It cannot reflect on its end, its own death. Inauthentic existence is one that lives in exteriority. Heidegger asserts that there are identifiable elements of inauthentic existence. First, the craving for novelty. People live consumed by the craving for novelty, that is, they jump from one thing to another. What's new in sports? In politics? What's new in fashion? It's incredible that in 1927, when there were no computers or cell phones, already in those years, Heidegger had realized that the individual in the collective doesn't pay attention. It seems that when Heidegger speaks to us of this craving for novelty, he is speaking to us about TikTok, an application that satisfies this ever-present need for novelty, where attention barely lasts a few seconds, and the brains of young people, over time, are no longer capable of making attentional efforts when required, and they can't concentrate on reading. Inauthentic beings, who intensively consume TikTok and other media, possess the characteristics that Heidegger had warned us about a century ago. This social network, like so many others, has negative effects on mental and physical health, on social relationships, and on academic performance. It is addictive, produces anxiety, and in many cases, depression. It also causes mood disorders. They experience decreased attention and concentration, and become easily frustrated. They are incapable of carrying out long-term projects. In an inauthentic existence, subjects are subjected. Inauthentic beings don't build anything. Everything is given to them. To define themselves, they follow a template. A template is a term used today, and it is a predefined model used as a basis for creating something. Thus, the destiny of inauthentic beings is to conform to a mold. The inauthentic being, the drone, doesn't produce its own ideas. It repeats those given to it by others, as in the taxi driver example. And on the road, the drone behind it imitates the one in front. If a sheep starts walking in a circle, the others follow out of gregarious instinct. These beings that walk in circles belong to a herd, a flock of birds, or a fish shoal. And curiously, they have a highly developed gregarious instinct. This means that it's difficult to find original individuals who think for themselves. The gregarious beings of the horde are thought. The truths they receive and blindly accept are revealed to them. The most disturbing case is that of the death spiral, in which some species of ants get caught in a loop by following the ant in front of them, believing they are on the right path. If nothing interrupts them, they can continue spinning until they die of exhaustion. They go on and on and on. They don't really exist. That's why Heidegger calls them inauthentic beings, because they are not. This is related to gregariousness. The word gregariousness comes from the Latin gregarious, from grex, which means flock, herd. So the gregarious quality tells us that the individuals of the collective blindly follow the horde or the herd. For the inauthentic being, The word of authority is the truth, since it tells them what to think and how to act. It even seems that the drones of the collective follow an algorithm to adapt to the horde. It is curious that in our times there is an interesting connection between the inauthentic beings of Heidegger's philosophy and the concept of NPCs, non-playable characters, especially as used today in internet language and games. Let's take it step by step. Let's remember that Martin Heidegger distinguishes between two forms of existence. Authentic existence, in which the individual accepts their own finitude, makes conscious decisions, and lives according to their own life plan. And inauthentic existence, where the individual is driven by the one, das Man, a kind of impersonal force in society. In this way of being, one behaves as one should, according to social norms without questioning them. We could call this das Man the genius of the species. The inauthentic being is someone who lives impersonally, not by choice but out of conformity, routine, or fear of facing their freedom and responsibility. The inauthentic being is like background decoration, a non-person, non-existent. Because in games, the one who truly exists is the player, and the characters who walk and run around them are part of the landscape. They are NPCs. In video games, an NPC is a character who lacks free will. They follow predetermined scripts or algorithms. In popular culture and the internet, calling someone an NPC means they act automatically, without critical thinking, repeating speech or behavior without questioning it. They follow their algorithm. Both inauthentic beings and NPCs aim for the same thing. Both are beings who live on autopilot, who don't question the environment in which they live or their own decisions, who simply repeat what others say or do. They go on and on, without generating their own thoughts. Heidegger's inauthentic being dissolves into das Man, which tells them, do this, say that, without taking ownership of their existence. Therefore, they are thought by another. They follow an algorithm. And evidently, the NPC faithfully obeys its programming. It repeats lines of dialogue, ideas, or patterns, without reflection or agency of its own. The figure of the NPC, although born in the language of video games and popularized as a meme, encapsulates a profound philosophical concern about authenticity, freedom, and being. From Heidegger to Byung-Chul Han, passing through Kierkegaard and Sartre, existential philosophy has warned of the dangers of an inauthentic existence, governed by the impersonal, the structured, or the performative. The NPC is, in this sense, a modern metaphor for that alienation. Not an external enemy, but a mirror of the human collective. In its descent into inauthenticity, recognizing it as such is the first step toward reappropriating being. As far as becoming is concerned, the inauthentic being or NPC merely swarms. His ontological signature is null, because he never knew himself. Because he is not. He didn't build a soul. Evidently, at the end of his existence, he will no longer be in tune with the utopo. And he will be nothing.